I think about 1956. When Merle and I got to Defiance, President McCann said, we're going to build a field house.
I think the story of the field house at Defiance College is really a fascinating tale.
We were in dire need of facilities, and at this time it's wonderful to see the new field house come into play.
This is essential, and it's essential to be a total package rather than just one thing. And to me, the field house makes it very, very easy for us to be competitive, to go after the young kind of person who wants to go beyond just the classroom experience.
So I think it'd be a good recruiting tool for the college. And I think Dr. Gordon feels that same way.
When I started as president at Defiance College in 2009, one of the first things that I heard about was the proposed field house for the college. I heard about it from loads of different people. And I was actually amazed at the intensity with which so many people mentioned it for me. And so I really started to take a look at it in terms of what is this field house? Why is it so important to so many different people? And I discovered a whole series of things. You know, one thing that I heard about was, I heard about how we had been talking about a field house for so long, and people, frankly, were excited about the idea of the field house, but they were also quite frustrated that it hadn't happened yet. And I heard plenty of stories about, oh, let me tell you about this particular recruit who came when he or she was recruited. We told them that the field house was about to be built, and they came and they played and they studied and they did a great job. And then they graduated, and then they went on and got married and had children, and still no field house. I heard about how important the field house was to so many different people. I spoke with George Smart about it, a member of the Board of Trustees, who so loves this college, and I heard how committed he was to the project.
My involvement in the Fieldhouse project began in 2004 when the Defiance College trustees decided to include a fieldhouse in our capital campaign. This was important since the college lacked an indoor track and tennis facility, which was a competitive disadvantage in our Heartland Conference, and it also hurt us from a recruiting standpoint. In addition, we needed an indoor facility which all of our athletic teams and all students could use year-round, particularly when the weather was bad. Not knowing anything about field houses, I asked Coach Small for his help. In October 2004, we visited 2 college field houses in Columbus, and during our visit asked the question, what mistakes did you make in designing and building your facility? We found they made some mistakes. So we decided to visit 2 more field houses, asked the same question, and found they also made some errors, and some were major. That's when I became a little paranoid, because if you don't design the proper length, width, height, and playing surface of the facility, you are stuck with the mistake for 60 to 70 years. I ended up visiting 12 field houses, and Coach Small, President Gordon, Rich Peugeot, and Mark Scheid joined me for some of these visits. Other more minor problems surfaced from these visits, such as locker rooms too small, not enough storage space, netting too close to the tennis courts, various court lines are confusing, overhead door too small, need more concession space, wrong choice of lighting, etc. Hopefully, we have learned from what others did wrong. And it was a real team effort to design our field house, and we received valuable input from Jerry Overmeyer, our architect, Dan Follett, our contractor, our athletic director, and all the coaches, President Gordon and his staff, and various trustees. I still have a 2006 memo to me from Coach Small in which he stated in bold letters, very important, make sure the playing surface of the track is at least 13 millimeters thick. Well, Coach Small will be glad to know that recently President Gordon approved the funding to go from 12 millimeter thickness to 13 millimeter.
First of all, I think I'll go back to the time when I first became aware of Defiance College. I was a young kid, probably 8 or 9, and they had a pool in Sisson Hall. And we had a bunch of us from what we called East Side Rats would come over and swim in the pool. And Bauer was the kind of a caretaker of the swimming pool, and he'd kick us out. So he became a big baseball coach over in Lima. And so that was my first experience. My next experience was after the war. I needed to refresh my, I guess, educational tools, English, and clean up some language that we had during the service. And so I spent a semester at Defiance College, and there were 84 students here at the time. We did have a basketball team, and our Sisson Hall gymnasium had a leak in the roof, and the floor of the gymnasium buckled, and it was to the right at the center line, and at the one of the sides, not all the way through the center. But to play basketball, you'd have to go around the buckle. Otherwise, you'd have to know how the ball would bounce. And the gymnasium was the size where you could rebound from one end and shoot at the other. So you could see we needed a facility.
You know, I came here, Defiance College, in the winter of 1964. Dr. Urch and the history department had disappeared, still disappeared by I understand, and they needed somebody in a hurry, and of course they grabbed the only available source, and I happened to be available. But I had conversation with Dean Kurtz at the time before I came here, and he was aware that I was an ex-coach, football coach, and was currently coaching cross country. So he asked me if I'd be interested in starting cross country, and so I'm the guy that started cross country at Defiance College in 1964. Had no intentions of coaching football. I had given that up for about 3 years and was kind of content at not having my Saturdays torn up on the weekends in the fall. But about 1:30 one night, a young man by the name of Coach Me knocked on my front door, and I happened to be sitting up reading. He saw the light on. He come in, he just wanted to talk. He had noticed that I had been a coach before, and he wanted to know what I was going to do the following fall. And I told him, I said, well, nothing. He said, well, I'm the head coach, and there's a guy by the name of Coburn who's also the coach, and I have 2 assistants who are seniors at Defiance College. He said, we need an elderly image on our coaching staff. And, you know, I filled that bill pretty well back then. I must have been all of about 37 years old. But anyway, Kirk thought he needed somebody that represented age and dignity, of course.
I arrived at Defiance College campus in September of 1969, and it was right on the edge of moving into women's athletics at that time, because the early 70s is when Title IX kicked in. So when I first came, it was more of a women's, well, they called it WAA. It was Women's Athletic Association, but it was really the Recreation Association. But that's when they were beginning to make the transition. And when we got into the early 70s then, other schools in the country were participating in sports, and so the women wanted to participate more fully, and so we initiated that experience. There was not money available to do a lot of it, like there was with the men's program, so we of course didn't do a lot. I think we started with 8 games a season, and it was fun though. I mean, we would practice a lot for 8 games. And once we started moving along, we had, we would get a budget, and we would have a budget to work with. Not, of course, as big as others on campus, but we would have a budget. So that in itself was a good sign. They were willing to provide some money and work through the programs. I started with softball. Track came into play a little bit later than that, but softball, volleyball, and basketball were the 3 sports, and of course I was the coach, and it was an all-year thing. I loved it, but it was extremely difficult to teach because we didn't get a reduced load at that time, and I had all the sports, and so it went from one season to another season, another season. So by the time I got to the end of the school year, I was ready for summer vacation. So.
Kirk Mean never had a thermometer in his body. He never knew that it was 10 degrees above zero and you shouldn't be out on the field practicing. So we thought about having a field house, but when I really got thinking about a field house was in the spring when I joined Coach Small as his assistant in track. And we started to realize that some of the schools we were competing with had the advantage of having a longer season. So Dick and I tried to improvise a field house out of what is now the Wiener Gymnasium. And well, it worked, but it's kind of hard to throw the shot put on Marv Hohenberger's floor. He got upset about that. And little things like that that kind of upset other people about Dick and I trying to make the gymnasium a field house.
When they put Wiener Center in, believe it or not, I ran track meets in there. And people shake their head and wonder how. Well, we did it. That's me. I'm always thinking of ways that we can do things. And if you're going to have a program, why try to do the best you can with what equipment you have. So, but a field house was just, I walked in then just amazed.
I remember a meeting that I had with the coaches in which I basically said, look, it's pretty clear. Either we have to get this thing done or we have to stop talking about it and move on to something else. And so I really wanted to work with people to find a way that, that we could get it done and that we could get done something that would help not only our athletic programs, but that would help the entire college as a whole. And I think one of the things that people sometimes don't realize is that, yes, of course, the field house is going to offer all kinds of opportunities for our student athletes, but it's going to offer opportunities for all of our students. It's going to offer opportunities for our faculty, for our staff, for administrators. It is going to be important for the entire community, and also, frankly, it's going to help academically. We have a whole series of limitations currently without the field house in terms of the usage of our gym, and that means that we have athletic teams, frankly, which are practicing at very inconvenient times, which frankly make it very difficult for those students to then make it to their classes. And so there were all kinds of additional new opportunities academically that the field house brought, and also when you start thinking about things like our athletic training programs and some of the other, the wellness and fitness programs, there are all kinds of ways that the field house can enrich those programs as well. So I really started to see the field house as a way that we could really benefit the entire college community and the greater community, but also, frankly, I thought it was really important that we show everybody that we could actually get it done, that there had been so much skepticism, that there's so much frustration, frankly, that I thought it was important that people could see, look, this college community, this community of alumni do have the ability, do have the commitment, really can come forward and make this happen, and they can make it happen quickly, and they can make it happen in a spectacular fashion. And frankly, that is exactly what happened. And so I think the story of the field house is very much a story of a whole group of heroes. Every person who has contributed to the field house, every person who has provided advice in terms of the field house, every person who came forward in terms of making donations, and there were a whole group of alumni who really stretched in order to make those 5-year pledges that would enable us to get this done. They are real heroes. They were heroes as students, a lot of them were heroes as student athletes, and now they are heroes again as alumni. And there are then a group of individual heroes who really put themselves on the line in ways that I think surprised everybody. George Smart, I think, is one of those examples. Here is a man who absolutely loves and adores Defiance College, who has given so much of his time and his energy and his talents to it. And he came forward and made a contribution which was incredibly generous, and in a very spectacular fashion, he really got this whole process started. And it is fair to say, without George Smart, we would not have this field house. The same is true of Dick Small. As everybody knows, Dick and Carolyn Small have both been wonderful, vital parts of the college community for decades and decades. They are beloved by many. And the fact that they were willing to come forward and be so generous with their own resources, and the fact that then Dick Small was willing to send out letters and talk to alumni who so respect and admire him, I think that made a huge difference. With Randy Buckman, I had an opportunity to travel with him to visit different alumni as he was asking them to contribute to the field house. And there was no question, from the first moment they would see him, the admiration that they have for him, the respect, the awe, frankly, and I think the love. And I think they saw that this is a project that is so important to Randy and to Marilyn Buckman, and I think that really caused them to say, gee, I think I really do have to dig deep in order to help with this. Dwayne Hocking also came forward. When we talk about heroes, George Smart is a hero, Dick Small is a hero in so many ways, Randy Buckman is a hero in so many ways, and the truth is Dwayne Hocking really is the hero of women's athletics at Defiance College. And I think it was very important that she was willing to come forward and make phone calls and really put her own prestige and reputation on the line in order to make this happen as well.
It was kind of, okay, we've heard this before kind of thing, and I would say, now listen, do you think that you would hear my voice on the other end of this telephone if it was not going to happen? And that made the change right there. And so then that's where we would get into the fun conversations, and then finally we would get down to the nitty-gritty of the pledges and so forth.
And when we think of the campaign that we are involved in, ready to wrap up, we forget about Defiance College also in that campaign had millions and millions of dollars set aside for academic help, scholarships for young people. And when you think that over 90-some% of our students all receive financial aid, this is essential.
I was so grateful when Mark Gordon said, "It's going to be done on my watch." And I said, wonderful, it's about time. I'm somebody's grandmother now, you know, I'm not, so it's about time for that to occur.
If I go into this one, I'll get the same feeling. I would want to run again. I would want to be a part of that program again.
I believe this field house will be very important in the college's future. It will be a terrific facility for all Defiance College students to use, including athletic teams, intramural teams, and individuals. It will certainly help in the recruitment and retention of students. It also includes our partnership with the YMCA and the Defiance community. As chair of the Capital Campaign, I want to thank all of you who contributed to the Fieldhouse project and helped us raise $4 million. I also want to thank everyone who participated in the fundraising effort, for without your meetings, phone calls, and letters, we would not have been successful in funding the Fieldhouse. I have enjoyed watching the facility rise from the ground via the webcam and several visits to the construction site. I look forward to its completion in December. Thanks again to everyone who helped make this athletic center become a reality.